Butler. I'm also known as the Bird Diva, and you can Google Bird Diva. You'll find out all about my work and the things that I do. Right now, I'm really focused on something called slow birding, which is a different approach to birding that's more mindful in its practice and is more focused on connecting people with birds and the land and themselves. But tonight, I've been invited to talk a little bit about birding birds of the Missisquoi and Trout rivers, and I was having a lot of fun going through all your maps on your website today, and just kind of revisiting the places that I haven't been in a really long time. And I discovered some things today that I'm excited to talk to all of you about, including the birds. And so this is the most exciting part to me. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about birds that you can find along the Missisquoi and Trout rivers, and we're going to focus on just a couple of groups. But I also want to talk to you a little bit about eBird hotspots. Hotspots are, by the birding community, are considered places where you want to go bird because there's typically a good diversity of birds there. Local birders find these places really appealing, and they're aggregated on eBird. So you can ask for a place to become a hotspot. And then what that does is it basically alerts other birders that that's a place to go that might be of interest. So as I was researching things for tonight, I only found one hotspot along the Missisquoi and Trout River. And that's kind of interesting, right? If we think about drawing people to these places to recreate and to connect with nature, and to understand the importance of the watersheds, that birding audience we might be missing out on. And so as I went through the maps on the website, I found a couple other trails that maybe we can consider as a community to start to bird more and maybe turn into some hotspots. So places like the Troy School Trail, I was like, I haven't even ever heard of that, but that's on your map. The rail trail, and Annette, I know you and I have talked about this numerous times, like how could we create some hotspots along the rail trail? Because we know the birding's good there. Riverwalk Park, is that someplace where we could start to ask people to ID birds? Big Falls, Lindsay, like what? Why haven't I ever submitted an eBird report for the times that we've been birding together there? North Troy Trail, Davis Park. There's the Northern Forest Canoe Trail. So I think there's some opportunities here to not only create these hotspots, but also to get to know the birds a little bit better along these waterways, and then create the hotspots as a draw for other birders. It's really kind of interesting. So I manage a listserv for the Franklin County area called the Missisquoi Birding Listserv, basically. And I put out a little message on that today and asked, where are your favorite places to go birding along the Missisquoi? Where do you like to pull over? Where are the spots do you feel like you find birds a lot? And so hopefully we'll get a little feedback. And if you're interested in trying to help me create some hot spots, we can do that. But first we're going to talk about birds and get excited about birding along the waterways. And I know some of you already do. And I kind of broke it up into 3 groups to make it really easy. So we're going to talk a little bit about eagles and friends, and warblers and friends, because that's kind of what's moving through right now. And then waterfowl and friends. One of the great things about being along a waterway, especially one that stays open for most of the year, is that we have birds to look at through the seasons. And I think we forget that. We get really excited about spring and we forget that there's stuff to look at all through the year. So we can think of looking for bald eagles pretty much year round, right? Because as long as there's a little bit of open water, they may be nearby. Osprey and vultures are going to come back in April and leave in September. Then we have like waterfowl season that we get into, which I absolutely love in Franklin County. April through October. And then right now, man, waterways are the highways for all those birds moving from the south up through the north during migration. So it's a really, really great place to be. Just as an example, this weekend, no, actually it was just 2 days ago, I was down in Manchester, Vermont, and there was a small, tiny little brook that was coming off of the mountains there. And I was on the Equinox Preservation Trust land, and the warblers were bathing in the brook and then coming up out of the brook and perching in the trees and preening. And so, I mean, that's where all the birds were. They weren't anywhere else in the forest. That's where they all were. And we can think of both the Missisquoi and Trout rivers as those highways for a lot of these birds. All right, let's go big first. You guys know this one, bald eagle, right? And we have nesting bald eagles in Franklin County in Lake Carmine now, and probably in some other top secret places. Unfortunately, these guys are being impacted by that avian flu this year. So fingers crossed the ones that are nesting up in our area will do all right and come through that okay. We can look at the silhouettes from a distance and really be able to hone in and tell the difference between a bald eagle and an osprey that holds their wings a little bit differently. If we do get, you know, the bird highlighted from below, it's clear that this is a little bit different than that big bald eagle that I showed that was like kind of in those color blocks. Might get it confused with an immature, but a little bit of looking a bit more will tell you the difference between the two. And then, of course, we have turkey vultures, flying TVs, super fun. Tippy turkey vultures moving through the skies. I mean, I'm enjoying them right now, just in the distance, seeing them from afar. Just, I think they're beautiful, even though they're kind of funky ugly at the same time, too. So those are the big ones. Those are our eagles and the allies, vultures, ospreys, and bald eagles. We also have had golden eagles, Charlotte and Hal, Bill. Anybody else here have golden eagle sightings along the river? No? Okay, feel free to drop your top secret bird sightings in the chat too, if you want to. All right, now we're gonna move to like what's super fun right now. Oh my gosh, just get so excited. So warblers are like the jewels of the forest, right? And the shrub scrub fields and all of that. And, you know, when we're managing our waterways in a really great way, we're creating those buffers, which all of you have done. You've planted tons of trees, which means that there are going to be tons of spots for these warblers to stop. This is palm warbler, that nice little rusty cap, a little bit of an eyeline, yellow through the throat. There's some little chestnut drops on the chest, and the picture's blurred because palm warblers really like to bob their tail. So that's a really great tell for that warbler. This bird's passing through. So this bird, although we have some breeding pairs in Vermont, this is a boreal bird. And that's what I love about riverways through Vermont, is there that travel corridor for a lot of these birds. The other bird that I love to look for along the river, and this goes all the way out for those of you who have joined the Friends of Missisquoi on some of their spring walks. By the way, I think it's Migratory Bird Day this weekend over there. So they're encouraging folks to get out on the trails there. And this is a high elevation species bird that breeds up in the mountaintops. This is black pole warbler. It might trick you into thinking it's a chickadee, but you can see it's a little bit streakier. It's got some nice white wing bars and a black cap that comes all the way down to the cheek, and then a nice white cheek patch, black mustache, and a white throat. Bright orange legs. Those are some boots right there, looking good. And they use the waterways as a feeding and staging spot before they go to high elevation to breed. So it's really weird to hear and see them in the Missisquoi Valley, River Valley. But once we figured out that that's what they were doing, I was like, okay, this makes sense. They're going to use that waterway because all the insects are coming off of it. They're insectivores. They're gonna feed, and then they're going to move to breed. All right, then we have the two core warblers that you will get a chance to see really well along the waterways. These are the two that I two of the core warblers that I teach in my warbler class as easy to see and easy to learn by sound. This one is yellow warbler. This is a male. In fact, all of the ones that I'm showing you right now are the males in that super bright plumage. You'll have to learn the females separately or take my warbler class. Drippy chestnut streaks all down the side from the throat, jet black eye and a black beak. And they've got a little bit of like a brown black tone to the back. And this bird was a great, oh gosh, fingers crossed. I turned the sound on before I did share. Let's see. Yes, I remembered. Sweet, sweet, little more sweet. They're flirting with you, John, when you come down on your canoe. They are. Yeah. So these guys are going to breed in the shrub scrub along the waterways and in other shrubby, scrubby, wet areas as well. The next, I know you want to keep talking. Okay, hold up. We did that already, and we're going to go on to your buddy. The bandit bird, that's what I call this one. So black mask, yellow throat, and my sister calls it a white headband to hold your feathers back. So olive tones up top and yellow on the bottom. This is common yellow throat. These guys are sassy, super fun. They'll respond to a little bit of pitching, and they say witchity, 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 witch. So those are two that are really great to get to know. Good foundation warblers that you have a good chance of seeing along the Trout in the Missisquoi and other places. Okay, let's talk about some of their friends. This is the other family. Like I can't do all, like really the river corridors, everybody's cruising up and down that. You got thrushes coming up and down, sparrows, all of that during migration, really anything is possible. But then I started to think about what other family really kind of is a standout family along the river. And it's got to be flycatchers, right? We have flycatchers like this one that you can find in your backyard too. This is Eastern Phoebe. And they ask their name because they're so unsure of who they are. They're not secure enough yet. And then they remember it. And so they say it. Kind of comes up on the end. So it sounds like that question. Then you have another big flycatcher. So like we've got all different sized flycatchers from the tiniest one, the least flycatcher that we have, to the biggest, which is probably like great crested, I think. Although kingbird here, this is kingbird, might give that bird a run for their money. These guys are fierce and super flyers, and they're pretty loud. This is I got a great set of pictures from Peter Riley. He's a Vermont photographer. He watched a family of flycatchers. I can't remember which waterway he was by, but this is an adult feeding a young bird. You can tell by that bright pink gape that this is a young bird. And you'll note that the kingbird is really dark throughout the top. And then the tail feathers, the edge of the tail feathers there's like an edge of white, and that will really stand out. Flycatchers do what they do, right? They go out and grab things out of the air and then come back to a perch, which is why it's great, especially when you're on the water. You'll see them come out from the overhanging canopy and then come back in to eat whatever they caught. It looks like a Japanese beetle here, which is pretty good. Let's listen to this one. Maybe you recognize hearing this one. Oop. I put them too close together. Oh, come on. Nope. Oh, you're just frustrating me. I wonder if I can do it just by clicking. Let's try it. Yep. So flycatchers don't have a song per se, but they have these chatty little calls that they give. All right, and then finally, super Mac daddy of the flycatchers. I love these guys. I had one in my yard this week, which they won't stick around, but they were out there calling. This is great crested flycatcher. You can see like that little bit of a crest on the top there, and olives and grays, and then this beautiful wash of yellow. And then the undertail, right? The color under the tail tends to be this kind of really cool orangey tone. And they are especially loud as well. That's the one I like. Weep, 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 weep. They're super fun. So flycatchers, like they all have that same kind of silhouette. So it's a great family to get to know along the water. Super acrobatic as well. I think they would give swallows really a run for it when it comes to grabbing insects out of the air. And then of course we have waterfowl. And I think there's really a missed opportunity here going back to the eBird hotspot. You know, when I looked up what kind of waterfowl are using the waterways there and used eBird as a reference point, from all the reports that we've had at the Brownway Trail, there's only 3 species. It's gotta be more than that. It really must be more than that. So the first one was common merganser. These guys are divers. They look very different than other waterfowl. So they're kind of in their own group, that like long, narrow bill that's totally designed for grabbing fish and swallowing them down. Male is on the left, female is on the right. And in a couple weeks, I don't know, maybe even right now, if they've gotten at it already, you get to see this. Oh my goodness, like big rafts of little fuzzy fluff balls. Sometimes they're like riding right up on mama's back. Sometimes mom has 25 of them trailing behind her and you're like, what is going on? They kind of work together sometimes. And then they also tend to lay eggs in each other's nesting cavities. So sometimes there's some moms that are like, yeah, don't really feel like doing this, but can you take my egg? And so other moms and other mom mergansers end up taking care of those babies. So that's why sometimes you see these huge rafts and just one female. You're like, whoa, there you go. But gosh, I can't wait to see some of those guys. Those are definitely showstoppers. But then we've got these guys, which look like a painting. We have wood ducks, right? Another cavity nester. These guys are dabblers. So they're going to go butt up and be pulling things off of shallow water bottoms. Males on the left and the females on the right there. And we can encourage them in some of the floodplain forest areas by putting up nest boxes and things like that. So they're just absolutely striking. But then there's this one. How do you get to be this color and these patterns, right? Like it's just really amazing to me. Just being able to like spend some time looking at waterfowl close up. This is green-winged teal. This is not a common nester in Vermont, and it's going to move further north where it is a more common breeder, but it's going to use our waterways to do that. And this is the third bird that we have a report of on the Missisquoi. Like, go figure, something that's not super common, it does breed up where we are, but we're not in the core breeding range for this bird. So really kind of cool that this is the one that showed up in the eBird reports for the Brownway River Trail. Just gorgeous. All right. So if you're jazzed by all of these birds, and you guys are probably already doing all of this stuff, I don't have to tell you these things because you are the leaders in your community. You're already doing these things. You've already created great habitat for these birds. So part of it, right? I think the one thing that maybe we could do better is this first one, is documenting stuff a little bit better. Using eBird, using iNaturalist to just capture some of these observations. Maybe we should work on creating some hotspots together along the Trout and the Missisquoi so we could just have some other points of reference. You're already working on minimizing disturbances on shore and in the water and creating quality shoreline, and I know that because I've planted trees with some of you before. And you're all about protecting the waterway that moves through your community and then into my community and then down to Lake Champlain. So I can't tell you any more of what to do. I can just tell you, please take some time to go out and enjoy what you've done, because you've all done some really amazing things in this work, especially with the Wild and Scenic designation. So I want to thank you all for doing what you do and doing it so well, and being inspiring and helping out a bunch of these birds that we just talked about tonight. So if this really got you fired up, feel free to visit my website or the social medias for some good social media content. I'm doing slow birding stuff, group and private tours. Some of you know that. Presentations and keynotes. I'm all over the place this year, but Franklin County is my home base and the place that I like to come back to and continue to connect with each time I go out here and try to connect with birds in my neighborhood. That's it. Does anybody have any questions, or you're like, oh my gosh, I have the best story to share? And I'll stop sharing.
I have a good story to share.
Yay, Susan.
So this morning, for the last couple of days, I've been hearing a warbler song on my property, and I've been like, I haven't heard that in a couple years. And so what is it? It's a Canada warbler. And it had a friend, and they were chasing each other around in the trees. And they have nested here on our property in the past, but it's been a couple of years.
Oh my gosh.
And it's in a different part of our property. It's up near the front of our property instead of in the back where the woods are deeper. So I'm not sure where they're gonna, settle down, but I get the feeling that they're here to stay.
Oh, that's so exciting. That's one of my favorite warblers. This is like a slate gray black across the top of the head, and then yellow spectacle and yellow through the throat, and then drippy black necklace down a yellow belly.
Necklace,
I mean,
I was like, oh my God, which one is that with that necklace? And I, took my bird book out.
Oh, that's so good. So Susan reminds me that, and some of you have discovered this already, Merlin has a new feature on the app called Sound ID, and it is mind blowing. It's really hard to put down now and actually focus on the birds. I tend to pull it out, but basically what it does is it's like Shazam for birds, and people have been asking for this for years. And you can use it on your smartphone. It's a free app. It records what is in your soundscape and then gives you a bunch of suggestions. Is it perfect? No. Are we perfect? No. Sometimes I hear things that I want to be there that really aren't there. And sometimes Merlin picks up on stuff that I'm not hearing, but then I know what to look for. And it's just been amazing. So give that a shot. Sit down with your coffee and let that thing record for a little bit and show you who's singing. It's really fun. All right, I know you guys have a big fat meeting. And so please reach out as you will. If you want to join the Missisquoi birding listserv, pop me an email at birddiva@gmail.com. And if you're interested in trying to I'm like, here's my little Post-it note of all those trails. I've never been birding in Troy. Maybe it's about time that I did. And if you want to come with me, let me know. Okay.
Yeah, Bridget, thanks so much. I definitely want to encourage more. I think there is birding happening. I mean, I know there's lots of birders on this screen. So I would love to get some either events going or something so that we can encourage people to report so that we can become more of a destination. Is eBird is the way that birders communicate now about where to go? Is that?
It's a way to research spots to go to. And so it's just really interesting when you go on the map and you look at Explore and you do the hotspot feature. I mean, right there, we are birding in Franklin County. And what's the next one? I always forget. What's Orleans, right? So Franklin and Orleans, there's just not a lot of hotspots. So there aren't a lot of designated places that people have been going to. So we have Enosburg Town Forest, Montgomery Town Forest, maybe.
Richford
and there are
has
some
some too.
and Richford, yes, Richford Town Forest. I think Annette and I are only two that have submitted bird checklists for there. So, right, this is also data that can be helpful when we're looking at making management decisions. And so we can definitely tap into that as well. But a lot of birders use it in terms of planning. Like if we come up here to visit, where can I go birding? So I think a few more points on the map might be great for our region.
Great.
Hey, Bridget.
Good tips
Yeah.
for how to encourage that.
So
What
I think it means,
Woodpecker to show up in the Richford Town Forest.
yeah, no, you mean
It's
tips
hard
on
to
how
get
to encourage people to come or getting hotspots?
Well, to come and then report what they're seeing.
Yeah, I think it starts with us within the birding community, figuring out what those places are that make sense to say to people, this is a great trail to come and walk and bird, right? So good public access, easy to find, right? And the rail trail is a really great one. That's why the town forests are on there too. They're easy to well, most of them, sometimes they're a little bit tricky to get to. But they're places that people can go and walk safely and confidently. And then we in the birding community, like basically, if I want something to be a hotspot, I just contact the eBird reviewer and I say, this would be a good hotspot. And then we just need to start birding it. And it's kind of like, if you build it, they will come. And hopefully then other people who visit who are into birding will find those hotspots on the map and visit them as well. You can also hold community events, right? You hold a bird walk and you demonstrate that on how to do that and teach people how to use eBird. Yeah, that's some other ways that we've started to encourage people in different spots. I mean, and I did that for the Richford Town Forest, and Enosburg Town Forest has a great list now, thanks to Charlotte and some of the other folks from the Conservation Commission there that are birders.
Just a question.
Oh.
I noticed on the stuff there on the list, Canada geese, mallards. I'm seeing a pair of mallards that keep dropping into my pond. And,
Good.
And there are more and more Canada geese who are nesting up in the higher reaches, at least of our south branch of the Trout River. And I think it's going to become an issue with the farmers because I bet you they're going to be pulling up some corn as soon as that shows its head. And Lindsay, I saw a bat a couple of times the last 2 weeks.
Me too.
I think Annette, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was just trying to type in on Saturday, June 4th, the Richford, Montgomery, Enosburg, and Bakersfield Conservation Commissions are going to sponsor a bird walk right on the rail trail. So if you want to come at 7:30 to the end of Hardwood Hill Road in Richford, it's where the town garage is. There's some parking there where the rail trail crosses the road. So we're going to be there if anybody wants to join us.
Great. Thanks, Annette.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Bridget. This was a great little synopsis of the birds, why the birds use our rivers and
Yeah.
what we can do
Oh,
to
thanks, you guys.
people to do it. So I appreciate it. And I would love to talk to you about getting more attention on some of those spots. And I've got a couple other suggestions too.
Okay. Sounds good. I'll catch up with you later then. Bye, you guys. So great to see all of you. I hope we cross paths sometime this summer and bird together. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, Bridget.